Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're stepping back in time, over 8 decades ago, to a hot July afternoon in 1944. It's a story about a day where literally every single second mattered, and the legacy it left behind, well, it changed everything. We're talking about a moment in history that is as deeply tragic as it is historically crucial to understand.
So picture this, it's July 1944 in Hartford, Connecticut. Imagine that intense, sticky heat of a summer afternoon, but it's completely overshadowed by just pure excitement. Thousands of people have gathered together for a massive, highly anticipated circus show. If you close your eyes, you can almost hear it, right? The children buzzing with excitement, the echoing laughter bouncing around. And covering all of them is this massive, vibrant, colorful tent, a literal canopy blocking out the hot sun and pulling everyone into this self-contained world of wonder.
Inside that tent, the atmosphere was absolutely electric. It was a total sensory spectacle. Down in the rings, you've got clowns entertaining this massive crowd, pulling these huge roars of laughter from kids and adults alike. Up above, acrobats defying gravity, pulling off these breathtaking, incredibly dangerous stunts. And all of it is tied together by a live band playing this upbeat, festive music. I mean, it really felt like the ultimate grand celebration, just a picture-perfect summer afternoon.
But things are about to take a terrifying turn. And the craziest part? Absolutely no one sitting in those wooden stands, eating their popcorn, laughing with their kids, had any clue what was coming. There was zero warning. In just a matter of minutes, these happy, festive grounds were destined to become a horrific scene of death and panic. That contrast, going from pure joy to absolute nightmares so quickly, it's just staggering to think about.
The sheer, terrifying speed of this disaster is what makes it so haunting. Let's walk through it. Minute 1, the show is in full swing. Music is blasting, acrobats are midair, totally normal. Minute 2, there's this very light, almost imperceptible wisp of smoke in the corner of the tent. Minute 3, a small fire actually becomes visible and starts crawling along the canvas. And then by minute 4, literally just 4 minutes in, that massive tent is completely engulfed in flames. It went from everyday joy to a deadly inferno in the blink of an eye.
And what makes that tiny 4-minute window even more heartbreaking is how people reacted at first. It's a tragic irony, really. Initially, people just ignored it. Some actually thought it was part of the act. The audience was so relaxed, so completely trusting of the circus environment that they totally dismissed the very first warning sign. To them, that rising smoke wasn't lethal danger. It was just, another theatrical special effect added for the show.
Now, you might be wondering, how did a huge tent catch fire so quickly? Well, the fatal chemistry that doomed everyone inside came down to the materials they used back then. The massive canvas had been coated in waterproofing chemicals, which, sure, were intended to protect the tent from summer rain. But the fatal reality? Those chemicals acted as a highly flammable fuel. Once that initial spark hit, the waterproofing didn't just burn, it rapidly accelerated the flames. It was practically feeding the fire instead of stopping it. Because of that combustible chemical coating, the fire shot upwards in literally seconds. It climbed those tent walls with this unnatural, terrifying speed. And here is where it gets incredibly visceral and horrifying. The burning canvas actually began to melt. Searing, hot, liquid pieces of this massive tent started raining down directly onto the panicked crowd trapped below. So, as you can imagine, human panic rapidly compounded the structural failure of the tent. Realizing the immense danger raining down from above, people naturally rose as one massive group to flee. Thousands of terrified individuals ran simultaneously for the same limited exits, which instantly jammed the pathways. In that desperate crush to escape, people began to fall, and the terrified, surging crowd, pushed by the intense heat right behind them, simply passed right over them. It turned into a deadly stampede, where the sheer volume of fleeing people actually became the trap. The entire environment inside dissolved into total, absolute chaos. That sensory experience we talked about earlier, it shifted entirely from joy to pure horror. Instead of laughter, you had children crying out, people screaming. The air quickly filled with this thick, blinding smoke that made it impossible to see anything, plus the deafening roar of the blazing fire. Terrified voices echoed in the dark, desperately calling out for loved ones in the confusion. And the fire was spreading so aggressively, many people didn't even get the chance to stand back up once they fell. But, even in the darkest moments of history, we often see incredible courage shine through, and this was no exception.
Artists instantly abandoned their stunts, literally dropping whatever they were doing to jump into the chaos and save lives. Outside and inside, staff members grabbed whatever tools they had and desperately slashed at the thick tent walls, cutting them open to create makeshift escape routes. They were risking their own lives, staying dangerously close to the flames, just to pull trapped audience members out of the inferno. Yet, despite all those incredible, heroic efforts, the fire was just unforgiving. In mere minutes, just a handful of minutes from that very first wisp of smoke, the giant, colorful tent completely collapsed into a massive fireball. And for the people who actually managed to escape outside, the nightmare just continued in a different, deeply agonizing way. They were forced to stand there, watching the blaze in absolute helplessness, knowing that friends, family, and complete strangers were still trapped inside. When the roar of the flames finally died down and the fire was extinguished, what was left? Gone were the bright colors, the lively music, the happy laughter of the afternoon. The massive site was reduced to nothing but burned, smoking debris. And scattered among the black ash were these heartbreaking remnants of a summer day. Personal belongings, shoes, hats, all dropped in the frantic struggle to survive.
Hundreds. In the wake of this incredibly fast-moving disaster, hundreds of lives were lost. But the tragedy? It wasn't just in the finality of that staggering death toll. It was in the broken families left behind. Many children were separated from their families forever on that chaotic afternoon. It was a day when a circus full of applause turned into a permanent, communal memory of pain.
To this day, the 1944 Hartford Circus Fire remains permanently etched in history as one of the most horrific and deadly fire incidents in the United States. But its impact went far beyond the localized grief in Hartford. This unimaginable tragedy served as a profound wake-up call for the entire country. The sheer scale of the loss highlighted the massive, fatal flaws in how public events were managed. It ultimately forced the nation to drastically reshape and strictly enforce fire safety and crowd control regulations for large gatherings everywhere. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a really powerful thought to mull over. How quickly can a day of pure joy and laughter turn into a sudden, inescapable nightmare? It's a deeply sobering reminder of the fragility of life and, honestly, the life-saving importance of the safety standards that we so often take for granted today. Thank you so much for joining me to understand this pivotal, tragic piece of history. Stay curious, keep seeking the facts, and I'll catch you next time.